Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, I called my brother in Dominican Republic just to confirm, alright? And I asked him, because I remember when I was a kid, or even a teenager, because I used to visit there when my mom and my dad were there after they retired. Well, not even a teenager, I was already like in my 20s. But anyways, in Dominican Republic, they would have like an armed guard in front of a bank, like at the entry. So I called my brother to ask him, I'm like, do they still do that at banks? Do they have armed guards? Like, they usually carry like a shotgun. And he's like, yeah, they have that. And I'm like, what about at like gas stations, supermarkets, and things like that? And he's like, no. He's like, the only armed guards that I see besides at the bank is like at a really big department store. You know, they have that. Believe it or not, they have something that's kind of like Costco's and stuff in DR. And he said, only in big department stores like that do we have like armed guards like that. This is something that's been happening here in the United States for a long time. Is a lot of branches of banks have like armed guards, right? Now, I haven't entered a bank here in Alaska. Well, I go to a credit union here in Alaska, and I've never seen an armed guard there. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a need. I've never heard of any kind of robberies or anything like that taking place in any banks around here. But I have seen other like large branches where they have like a guard. You know, I'm not sure if they're armed or not. They probably are. But now it's started where in Philadelphia, a gas station owner, because crime is so high, that they've decided to hire armed guards because crime is so high there, and the owner pretty much had a couple of choices. Either hire the armed guards or close his shop, because the rule of law is not really being enforced in a manner that is beneficial to the public, and especially small businesses there. I came across this story this morning, and it reminded me of a video that I saw from David Dubine, Adapt 2030. I think this is about a year old, this video that he put out. And he talked about how here in the United States and in Western worlds, as things start to degrade, as society starts to degrade because of the lack of food, number one, the lack of resources, the jobs going down, unemployment going up, that we would start seeing armed guards in front of businesses. And in addition to that, we would start seeing armed guards, escorting transports of food, like 18-wheelers full of food and things like that. And here it's starting. A lot of times when you hear someone talk about something like this a year or 2 years in advance, it's almost like when you hear Peter Schiff, who's an economist, talking about how we're going to have a terrible crash in the market and the economy 5-10 years before it happens, because he can see what's coming just from what he can see that is happening in the here and the now. And it is starting to happen. This, in my opinion, is going to continue to get worse. Crime is going to continue to get worse. If you think that crime is bad now, wait until next year when all of these hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of jobs are lost. Why? Because of something that I've talked about before. Because of debt saturation. People right now are living on their credit cards, and I'm talking about in general, right? I'm not talking about everyone. Obviously, it's not everyone. But about 60% of Americans, if not more, are living on credit cards, meaning that it costs them more to get to the end of the month than what they earn in their jobs. And the more that this continues to happen, the more that people get more desperate, the more that crime is going to go up. So here from the Daily Mail it says, Philadelphia gas station owner hires security guards armed with AR-15s and dressed in Kevlar vests to protect his store after it's repeatedly ransacked in crime-ridden cities. In a crime-ridden city, all right? I'll keep politics out of this. A North Philly gas station owner hired a private security team in the wake of a handful of break-ins and thefts at his property. Handful? I'm sure it took more than 1 or 2 or 3 times for this guy's gas station that he worked for really hard for a very long time. I'm sure that it took more than a handful of times before he decided to hire armed guards with, weapons. And they're not all AR-15s, by the way. I saw a short video on this. Maybe I can leave you a clip. And they're not all AR-15s, all right? Though some in the neighborhood are opposed to Patel's decision, he says his actions are driven by concern for his employees and customers. And again, here it says, though some in the neighborhood. Ladies and gentlemen, it's overwhelmingly for. The neighborhood that they live in is overwhelmingly for. The clip that I saw about this was taking a poll, and it was above 80% of the people in the neighborhood who were for this. And what he argued against those that were not for it, he asked, would you because the people that were not for it, they were asked why. And they're like, well, I don't think that, people should be carrying a gun in order to protect their business. And he says, well, you're okay with criminals carrying guns and assaulting a business and the people within the business, but you're not okay with a trained professional carrying a gun to protect that business. So it's more than 80% of people that say, yes, we're okay for this. People that live there, by the way, not a poll taken from people that live outside of that area. He says that he has no trouble with the neighborhood criminals who ransacked his store and stole his ATM since beefing up security.
We wear Kevlar. We are trained. My guys go to training every other week. They're proficient with this. They're proficient with their taser. They know the laws. As a Pennsylvania state agent, that's what it says. The law tells us that we have a right to protect this property in any means necessary, and whatever force necessary to be used to protect it.
This man told employees he's against it. I asked Patel about it. They feel like using guns, when we have such a big problem with guns in the city, is not the right message.
And that's not a right. I understand that, but according to some people, violent people, they carry the gun. Then they're not afraid then, and this is the protection for neighborhood and the customers.
If I was a stock market person or a person that invested in the stock market, I would probably look for private security firms that were public, which I'm not sure that many of them are, but I would invest in those because I think that public security or private security firms, they're going to get a lot of business in the years to come. And I mean in the years to come, for several years ahead. They continue to say here that robberies in Philadelphia have skyrocketed more than 36% in the last calendar year as the city contends with ongoing crime crisis. And ladies and gentlemen, this is all a derivative of what? It is a derivative of inflation. It is a derivative of how the dollar is being diminished in its purchasing power. And it is a derivative of jobs being lost and also of law enforcement not being allowed to do their jobs. So you ask yourselves, do you think that inflation is going to get better? Do you think that jobs, employment is going to get better from here? Do you think that your dollars are going to become more valuable? If you think all of those things, then this won't continue. We won't have more businesses hiring outside security firms that are armed to protect their business. But if you think that inflation is going to get worse and that the depreciation of the dollar is going to get worse and that employment or unemployment is going to get worse, more people are going to be losing their jobs because more businesses are going to be shutting down or ramping down because they just can't afford it. If you think all of those things, then this is going to continue to happen. More businesses are going to start hiring security firms. Why? Because it's the only thing they can do when they have or when they live in a city that does not support law enforcement and allowing them to do their jobs. Now, in my opinion, I think that the people that live in that community should feel lucky that this person did this, because without doing this, he would have just had to shut down. And you'll see a lot of businesses shutting down too. I'm not sure if you've heard how many businesses have left. And I'm not picking on the California people, but I am picking on their policies, all right? But how many businesses have left or have threatened to leave California, specifically in the places where they have made it law that you can commit crimes up to a certain dollar amount before you're even prosecuted for them. A lot of businesses are leaving those areas. And that's going to continue to happen to those states that do not want to abide by the rule of law or allow their law enforcement to do their jobs. So this is going to continue, ladies and gentlemen. It's another reason why you want to make sure that you're prepared. That way, when it gets really crazy out there, you don't have to be out there contending with desperate people and with criminals as well. This just came in my mind, and I want to go ahead and give you a couple of, I don't know if it's advice, but let me just tell you what I'm thinking. I've seen a few videos and read a few stories on what some criminals are doing in parking lots to cars. For example, whenever you come up to a vehicle, let's say you went to Costco. When you come to your vehicle, make sure that you look in the back window and that there's nobody inside of your vehicle. Of course, make sure that there's no one, around your vehicle that looks suspicious. Make sure you look in your back window of your vehicle. Make sure there's no one inside before you even go in. Before you open the door, if you don't have gloves on and you just have your bare hands, make sure that there's nothing on your door handle. Right? Because what they've been doing is they've been placing like adhesives on there that are laced with a chemical that make you drowsy and make you fall asleep or pass out. Another thing that you want to make sure that you do, they've been putting little, those Apple chips that can actually track you by GPS. People have been finding those in their gas tank door inside. It's a way for them to track you home. Make sure that nobody's following you home. These are all things that you want to be on the lookout for whenever you go shopping, especially in a busy area. Also, another really good idea, of course, in addition to having an EDC, right, an everyday carry, and being proficiently trained with it, another good idea is that when you go to a store, in a crowded place, maybe crime is high or what have you, bring a battle buddy. Bring someone with you. Because if something happens, at least one of you can call the police or try to help, intervene, whatever. If you go and visit an ATM, try to do it like inside of a store or, like a department store. Like I know that at Costco, they have an ATM inside and it's free to use, by the way. They don't charge you any fees. But see if you can use an ATM like that's inside. And if you're going to be using an ATM that's outside, like a bank ATM, make sure that the area is well lit and, better if there's like a lot of businesses around where there's people walking around and stuff. Like one of the ATMs that I use in Fairbanks, two of them are indoors, and whenever those don't have cash, there's one that I use outdoors, but it's in a small plaza where there's always a lot of foot traffic and there's people there pretty much all the time. I never ever use an ATM like in the middle of the night. I'm never out in the middle of the night anyways, but I never do that. I always make sure that if I'm going to use it, that there's going to be people around, it's going to be busy time. That way, if something happens, maybe there will be someone there that would help, because mostly when I do use an ATM, I am by myself. So, and always, if you do prescribe to having an everyday carry, make sure that you're professionally trained on it. Make sure that you know how to take care of it, and make sure that you have it. That way, if you ever need it, you can have it there. Better to have it and not need it, I say, right? Having said that, have a great day, all right? Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. And remember, tomorrow's Friday, so tomorrow at 2 p.m. Alaska time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, we will have our regular Friday live stream. Hope to see you there. God bless you all. I'm Alaska Prepper. I am out.